somewhere along the line, it evolved into a banner versus the corrugated plastic.
I-4, 10 millimeter corrugated plastic.
Okay. And the Planning Commission spent an inordinate amount of time of how to deal with this. Minimum of 10-ounce scrim vinyl so that it wouldn't rip and tear. Affixed to studded T-posts. And they would have to be affixed in such a manner that they do not move in the wind. At staff level, we had some concerns because we wanted to, that would require, more posts, but, that was very doable, more portable, that sort of thing. When David and Allison re-reviewed the ordinance, they were like, hey, wait a minute, I think we misunderstood or we conveyed incorrectly or there was a miscommunication because I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything. They really aren't interested in a banner. They're more interested in the material that David had. I'll defer to him. The sign that's on the overhead right now, that's an example of two 32 square foot signs. If you go back one frame, when you're coming down Kingston Pike, these signs block the permanent sign of the Kroger gas station. Obviously, Kroger was not real pleased with that. And it isn't until you got farther down, which the next picture represents, that you could actually kind of see the corner of the Kroger sign. So that was one of the reasons. That was a common complaint that we've received from businesses over the years and from residents that felt it was cluttering. That was the initial impetus for reducing the sign size. So the sign size hasn't ever been an issue. The Planning Commission recommended approval of Ordinance 1122. Staff also does, but with David's recommended changes, we're really good with that too. Actually, even more better than what we were.
I brought a sample of what 10 millimeter corrugated plastic looks like, if anybody'd like to see that. But I think it's oversight on our part, not as much town staff, on what the change was for the materials. Traditionally, in the town of Farragut, it's never been for banner signs. This way it's written right now, there would be banner signs. It would require them to be staked out more. These signs you see here are actually affixed to plywood backing. I think our overall goal, was, and here Archer's has used a 10 millimeter corrugated plastic. Our goal has been to make the signs more concise, a little more standardized, clearer in their message. As you saw with those other two signs, there's a lot of different colors, there's a lot of different messages going on, different objectives. Our goal here was to try to get these special events to convey who's your business, what's your message, what's your phone number or your website, and will you please put Shop Farragut on there to help us build the brand of shopping in Farragut. I have asked Allison, I had one made up because I'm working on a sign for our store right now. This is not necessarily a finished product, but I had him do two different ones. One's a 5-foot length, 4-foot high sign. The one next to it is a 4-foot wide, 5-foot high. We were just playing around, but the idea here is to say, here's my business, and not all business names say who you are and what you are. Archer's Barbecue explains who he is fairly well. All he has to do is put Archer's Barbecue, I'm now open, and you get the message. But we wanted to say, okay, here's your logo, here's your name, here's what you can say. You can say one line, and then you can put your website, phone number, Shop Farragut, and the Shop Farragut logo to help drive that brand. So we're going to make a recommendation on that section, I think it's 2D, that materials be changed to use the 10 millimeter corrugated plastic. As I looked at that section a little bit further, that's about ground-mounted signs. There's some, I don't know, there's some comments in, or some way it's written in there that maybe you don't have a ground-mounted sign and it's a wall-mounted. So I don't know if that material still works the same way. I'll defer to Ruth on that subject. One other section that, as Allison pointed out, we had a discussion about in the ordinance is section 1D. No special events are permitted on vacant or vacated properties. I'd like clarification on that because technically we have the Taste of Farragut in a vacant parking lot. We have the Red, White, and Blues picnic on the Pikes at Farragut Press facility, but in the field next to Farragut Press it's a vacant piece of property. So, I mean, I think we'd like a little bit of clarification as we go forward to say those aren't truly, could be contested as vacant properties.
You are not a vacant property.
Not by your definition, no.
Right.
Okay.
Because there is a business there. The intent, what we've had, let me go find it.
Okay, you go.
So it picks up. The intent behind that is we have had problems with vacated properties that have lost any kind of grandfather status, and folks coming in or are in the process of losing. They're in that 30-month time period, and they want to come in and have some kind of special event, whether it's sell cow hides, which has been a common ongoing problem, and so we really don't want to run into problems with losing our 30 months with grandfathered situations. And 30 month comes from the state law. Tom's snickering, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so the idea is that if you're having a special event, it is actually for the premises, whether it be, like, in my opinion, the Taste of Farragut is at that center. Yes, the anchor tenant is no longer there, but you have other tenants at that center. To me, that is the ideal location for something like that, because you are bringing people into a center that needs some help, I guess is a good, nice way of putting it. But we don't want to see where you have vacated properties and having events occurring on them. Now, one of the things that will be coming back before you, David gave me till January. I guess he gave me a reprieve with the holidays, but we have what staff fondly refers to as the special events. And that is the celebratory ordinance. And so we are going to come back to that with you. Right now, that is if it affects public rights-of-way properties, that sort of thing. We're going to do some fine-tuning with that so that if, like, the Red, White, and Blues Festival is not only on the Press Enterprise property, but if it becomes so wildly successful, it bleeds all over the place, that it would fall under that special event permit, and that the Taste of Farragut, if it becomes so wildly successful that they need to bleed onto some other adjacent property, it would fall under that category. Currently, the Taste of Farragut does fall under this because they are not for profit, right? You got your, I don't, and they are not for profit, and they meet all the criteria under this thing, under this ordinance. I know that whenever we're having an event that's really a community-based event, there may be questions on, is the sign large enough, directional, that kind of thing. And that's something that we have to talk in-house more on where we want to draw the line with that. But as of right now, this ordinance would not prohibit the Red, White, and Blues. It would actually still accommodate it, as well as the Taste of Farragut. So the idea with the celebratory ordinance, we're going to catch it so that when it gets beyond that point, that ordinance will take over. And we're going to clarify some questions with regards to that.
In reference to that, that's one of our things from the FBA's perspective, because our memorandum of understanding with the town is that we are to help drive tourism. And the events that we currently do, the Red, White, and Blues, Taste of Farragut, we've got Art in the Park, and now we're doing the holiday tree lighting in Campbell Station Park. We'd like those events to be considered community events, town-sponsored events, and would like for this ordinance to dovetail with the ordinance number 20, which is the celebratory events. It references signage for that, but it doesn't define what that signage size is or scope. It does reference that you have to file a permit, showing what your signage is, but those kind of events, we would like to have an additional size signage. This ordinance will dictate what happens with Shop Farragut, because although it doesn't say it covers Shop Farragut, I don't think, unless I miss something again. But what happens is, the sign I showed you that we're designing for us out of this corrugated plastic is a $256 investment. Nobody's going to go out and buy two different signs, one for shop Farragut, one for special events. So by default, every business is going to adhere to the higher standard, and that's going to be this ordinance. So we'll be using that for shop Farragut. Now we have 72 businesses that have applied for the shop Farragut program this year, and they're still coming in. So we expect it to be probably over 80 by the time we really shut it down. So we're going to have 80 signs, so they're 20 square feet instead of 32 square feet. We've made standards to clean those up, but we look at these community events, these community-based events, to be something different. To be something a little bit different, and would like some latitude to have larger signage, because it depends on the geographics. We put a sign up down at Farragut Press. It's up on the hill a little bit. The top of it, I can't use the word correctly. The lay of the land is a little different, so it's a little bit larger signage. We have not done a great job with our signs because sometimes we put too much stuff on them. That's the whole point of this ordinance now, is to try to get people to be concise in their signage. We need to be more concise with it. Anyway, there's been some comments about, can you read the sign? But we'd like to have the latitude to have a larger sign. But how do you define a community-based event? Maybe it's a town-sponsored event, and that's controlled by the mayor and alderman saying, we're going to sponsor this, or we're not going to sponsor that. Because you don't want everybody in the world coming in and saying, I've got a community-based event, or not a community, but a celebratory event, and I comply with this. We maybe want to tighten that up a little bit, but I'd like for you to think about this ordinance in light of what we're trying to do in other areas with our signage. But mainly, the community-based events, our larger events, the thing we're trying to draw outsiders to. I mean, we've got a lot of traffic going through here on Campbell Station Road, Kingston Pike, and additional signage, larger signage, and it's only up for less than 2 weeks. We're talking about generally 10 to 14-day time frame where we put those signs up, so they're not permanent, and it's one time a year for certain events. So we just like for y'all to take that in consideration as you move forward.
I was writing what he was saying because I wanted to make sure when I brought back the celebratory ordinance that I addressed some of the things that David was talking about. The ordinance before you is in the zoning ordinance, and under the state law it states that anytime there's a substantial change it has to go back to the planning commission. Tom, do you feel that changing the material, does that need to go back to planning commission? Because we can take that back to planning commission to the December meeting, and then this would come for second reading at the January meeting, which is not a problem from the standpoint of there is the moratorium on special events until January 15th. So this would already be in effect again still before special events started back up again. But we actually, at the staff level, we very much prefer this. I think from the standpoint of the planning commission, when we talked about it, our goal was really to accommodate the business community because that's what we understood that they were requesting. You can approve it tonight on first reading, and then we come back and tweak it, and then come back for second reading.
Do you think that the changes in the signage that you're talking about would have impacted at all the way the planning commission dealt with it?
Well, that's why I was going to let you make that judgment call.
Well, okay. I mean, it doesn't strike me that those minor. I viewed them as relatively minor changes, and I don't. But I wasn't at the planning commission, so I don't know whether they talked about the specifics of that signage part.
Well, I would offer to your basic question, the answer would be no. It would not have affected, in my opinion.
That's the test.
Yeah.
If it would have affected the consideration of the planning commission, that interim modification, if it would have affected the planning commission's view based on what they discussed, then you should always take it back to the planning commission. But it sounds like to me it would not.